The Galactic Military Academy's combat simulator hummed with anticipation as 200 cadets from 17 different species filled the observation deck. Holographic displays flickered to life, showing a standard close-quarters combat scenario that every first-year student had completed dozens of times. Carson stood in the preparation chamber, checking his standard-issue combat suit one last time. The fabric felt too thin compared to what he'd trained in back on Earth, but regulations were regulations. Through the transparent wall he could see the crowd gathering, their expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed amusement. Another human, a Crithian cadet, snorted, his scales rippling with what passed for laughter among his kind. Watch him flail around like the last one. Earthborn combat techniques are so primitive. Alice, standing near the back of the observation deck in her instructor's uniform, kept her expression neutral. She'd heard it all before during her own cadet years. The mocking, the dismissals, the assumption that humans who'd only joined the Galactic Federation 70 years ago couldn't possibly compete with species that had been perfecting warfare for millennia. General Vexthor, a towering Dranthi with forearms and battle scars that told stories of campaigns across the galaxy, moved through the crowd. His reputation was legendary. 300 years of service, victories on countless worlds, and a tactical mind that had rewritten standard Federation combat doctrine twice. "General," one of the Zephyr cadets called out, her crystalline voice tinkling with amusement. "Is it true that humans still practice hand-to-hand combat in the age of plasma rifles and energy shields?" Vexthor's multiple eyes fixed on the cadet. When he spoke, his voice carried across the entire deck, low and gravelly. "Yes," the cadets laughed. "And is it also true," continued a Vorlax student, emboldened by the general's presence, "that they train in something called martial arts that's thousands of years old, using techniques designed for beings without proper natural weapons?" More laughter rippled through the crowd. General Vexthor didn't laugh. Instead, he moved to the observation window, his posture rigid. "It is true," he said quietly. Then even more softly, though every species' enhanced hearing picked it up. "Pray you never face one in real combat." The laughter died. In the preparation chamber, Carson heard the countdown begin. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The simulation began. The environment materialized around him, a destroyed space station, gravity at 60% Earth normal, flickering lights casting shadows everywhere. Standard scenario: hostile combatants, unknown number, rescue one hostage. Eliminate threats. Carson moved. What happened next would be analyzed in tactical courses for years to come. The first simulated enemy, a Crithian warrior in full combat armor, appeared from behind debris. Before its weapon could track Carson's position, the human had closed the distance. Not running, not charging, flowing. His movement was water finding cracks in stone. His body twisted at an angle that made several cadets gasp. Humans were flexible in ways that defied their skeletal structure. Carson's hand struck the Crithian's weapon arm at a precise joint in the armor, and the rifle clattered away. His other hand found the helmet seal, and with a sharp twist, the holographic enemy went offline. 2 seconds. One enemy neutralized without firing a shot. "He's fast," someone whispered. "Wait," General Vexthor said. 3 more enemies appeared simultaneously. A Vorlax, a Dranthi, and a human simulation. Standard doctrine. Find cover, assess threats, engage with ranged weapons. Carson did none of those things. He threw himself forward, not back. The Vorlax's plasma shot seared the air where he'd been standing a fraction of a second before. Carson's momentum carried him into a roll that brought him alongside the Dranthi. 4 arms reached for him. The Dranthi were known as the Federation's best close-quarters combatants, with twice the limbs and 3 times the strength of a human. Carson didn't try to match strength with strength. His elbow found a nerve cluster beneath the Dranthi's 3rd arm. As the simulation staggered, Carson used the alien's own body as a pivot point, swinging himself up and around in a movement that looked more like dance than combat. His legs wrapped around the Dranthi's neck, a hold that should have been impossible to maintain, and the sheer torque of his twist brought the massive warrior down. The human simulation and Vorlax were adjusting their aim when Carson picked up the fallen Dranthi's weapon and fired twice. Both targets went offline, 8 seconds total. The observation deck was silent. Alice allowed herself a small smile. "How?" a cadet began. "Watch," Vexthor commanded. The simulation escalated. 6 enemies, then 10, then 15. The program was adapting, throwing scenarios at Carson that were designed for squad-level combat, not individual engagement. Carson moved through them like smoke. Every species in the Federation had evolved for warfare in one way or another. The Crithians had scales and strength. The Vorlax had energy manipulation. The Dranthi had multiple limbs. The Zephyr had crystalline bodies that could withstand incredible damage. Humans had none of these advantages. What humans had was 10,000 years of killing each other. Every motion Carson made was the product of countless generations, refining the art of ending life efficiently. Karate, Judo, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Krav Maga, Muay Thai, boxing, wrestling, Sambo. Every culture on Earth had developed their own methods, and then in the modern era, they'd combined them, tested them, evolved them. Carson's body became a weapon that adapted to every situation. He used an enemy's momentum against them, Judo, struck nerve clusters with surgical precision, Kung Fu, controlled joints and applied leverage, Jiu-Jitsu, moved with footwork that made him nearly impossible to target, boxing, transitioned between standing and ground combat. Seamlessly, MMA, the simulation finally, ended when Carson rescued the holographic hostage and eliminated the 23rd enemy combatant. Total time, 3 minutes, 47 seconds. The previous Academy record, 8 minutes, 12 seconds. Carson had never drawn his sidearm. The observation deck remained silent as he emerged from the simulator, breathing hard but steady. Every pair of eyes, compound, crystalline, reptilian, and more, followed him. General Vexthor stepped forward. "Cadet Carson, exemplary performance, kind. Thank you, sir." The general turned to address the assembled cadets. "You laughed at Earthborn combat techniques. You called them primitive." His multiple eyes swept across the crowd. "Every species here evolved natural weapons, claws, strength, energy manipulation. You were born dangerous," he gestured to Carson. "Humans were born weak. Soft skin, blunt teeth. No venom, no armor, no natural weapons whatsoever." He paused. "So they spent 10,000 years learning how to kill anything that threatened them. With their bare hands." Vexthor's voice dropped to that same low whisper from before. "I have fought in 300 campaigns. I have faced every warrior species in the known galaxy." He looked at Carson and something like respect crossed his alien features. "I have only prayed before battle once. It was when I faced a human hand-to-hand." He turned back to the cadets. "I won that fight, barely, and only because the human was already wounded." The general's expression was grim. "I never want to face another one." Alice made her way through the crowd to Carson's side. "Not bad, cadet," she said softly. Carson grinned, still catching his breath. "Learn from the best, Lieutenant." As the cadets dispersed, their mocking replaced with silence and sidelong glances, Alice heard one Crithian whisper to another, "Remind me never to challenge a human to sparring." "Agreed," came the response. General Vexthor remained at the observation window long after the crowd had left, staring at the empty simulator. In 300 years he'd seen many things. But humans, these strange, persistent, adaptable creatures from a backwater planet, they continued to surprise him. Not because they were the strongest, not because they were the fastest, but because they'd spent their entire evolutionary history learning that survival meant becoming the most dangerous thing in the room. And they were very, very good at it. The end.